All right. It appears like I am officially live. Um, yeah, it's been very odd internet stuff has been going on that has made it difficult to get a good feed for a live post. But here I am. I am doing it, and today I am going to divert from what we typically are doing on Thursdays in poetry class. Um, and I decided that I wanted to share with you guys what I think is a wonderfully written book about poetry. And the name of the book is What is Poetry? And it is written by a gentleman who is perhaps one of my favorite poets of all time. And this gentleman's name is Lawrence Ferlinghetti, who is, there's a lot I could share about Lawrence Ferlinghetti, but to say that Lawrence Ferlinghetti is the first poet laureate of the city of San Francisco, is an influential member of the collective of beat poets who have populated City Lights bookstore in San Francisco for generations. And Lawrence Ferlinghetti does not like discussing what poetry is in interviews. And so I believe that he penned these words in a very, very small little collection called What is Poetry? So that he wouldn't have to answer the question anymore. So today I'm going to read some poetry to you all because I think it's good to consider this question. If you're going to be writing a lot of poetry, you should know in your mind what you think poetry is. So I hope you guys enjoy. This is What is Poetry? Poetry is news from the frontiers of consciousness. Poetry is what we would cry out upon awaking in a dark wood in the middle of the journey of our life. Poetry is a mirror walking down a high street full of visual delight. Poetry is the shook foil of the imagination. It should shine out and half blind you. It is the sun streaming down in the meshes of morning. It is white nights and mouths of desire. It is made by dissolving halos in oceans of sound. It is the street talk of angels and devils. It is a sofa full of blind singers who have put aside their canes. A poem should arise to ecstasy somewhere between speech and song. A poem must sing and fly away with you, or it's a dead duck with a prose soul. I like that one. Poetry is the anarchy of the senses making sense. That's good. That's good. Poetry is all things born with wings that sing. Like a bowl of roses, a poem should not have to be explained. Poetry is a voice of dissent against the waste of words and the mad plethora of print. The mad plethora of print. Oh, man. It is what exists between the lines. It is made with the syllables of dreams. It is far, far cries upon a beach at nightfall. It is a lighthouse moving its megaphone over the sea. It is a picture of Ma in a Woolworth bra looking out a window into a secret garden. It is an Arab carrying colored rugs and bird cages through the streets and a great metropolis. A poem can be made of common household ingredients. It fits on a single page, yet it can fill a world and fits in the pocket of a heart. The poet is a street singer who rescues the alley cats of love. Poetry is pillow thought. It is the distillation of articulate animals calling to each other across a great gulf. It is a pulsing fragment of the inner life and untethered music. It is the dialogue of naked statues. It is the sound of summer in the rain and people laughing behind closed shutters down an alley at night. It is a bare light bulb in a homeless hotel, illuminating a nakedness of minds and hearts. Let the poet be a singing animal. Poetry is incomparable lyric intelligence brought to bear upon 57 varieties of experience. Poetry is a high house echoing with all the voices that ever said anything crazy or wonderful. Poetry is a subversive raid upon the forgotten language of collective unconscious. Poetry is a real canary in a coal mine, and we know why the caged bird sings. Poetry is the shadow cast by our streetlight imaginations. It is the voice of the fourth person singular. It is the voice within the voice of the turtle. It is the face behind the face of the race. Poetry is made of night thoughts. If it can tear itself away from illusion, it will not be disowned before the dawn. Poetry is made by evaporating the liquid laughter of youth. Poetry is a book of light at night, dispersing clouds of unknowing. It hears the whisper of elephants and sees how many angels dance on the head of a pin. It is a humming, a keening, a laughter, a sighing at dawn, a wild, soft laughter. It is the final gestalt of imagination. Poetry should be emotion, recollected in emotion. Words are living fossils. The poet should piece the wild beast together and make it sing. The poet is only as great as his ear, to be bad if it is tin. Poetry is perpetual revolt against silence, exile, and cunning. The poet, a subversive barbarian at the city gates, constantly challenging our status quo. That one rings true for me, is why I started writing poetry, certainly. He is the master ontologist, constantly questioning reality and reinventing it. He mixes drinks out of the insane liquors of imagination and perpetually surprised that no one staggers. Insane liquors of the imagination. Oh. He should be a dark barker before the tents of existence. Poetry is what can be heard at manholes echoing up Dante's fire escape. Poetry is religion. Religion is poetry. Didn't expect that. It is the humming of moths as they circle the flame. I'm seeing a question here from Miss Robin. Miss Robin, I see that my audio stream is being recorded right now, so I would check the audio of your computer. You may have turned down the speaker on your computer, Robin. Actually, since you can't hear me, I will type that back to you real quick. Audio. Your computer. As I said before, there has been some really odd internet breakages and signals, so perhaps I could be suffering from that, but it does look like from my screen that my audio is going out. So I hope that that you can tune in, Robin, and hear what I'm reading soon, or go back to the beginning and try it all over again. Here, it is the humming of the moths as they circle the flame. It is a wood boat moored in the shade under a weeping willow in the bend of a river. The poet must have wide-angle vision, each look a world glance, and the concrete is most poetic. Interesting. Poetry is not all heroin horses and Rambo. It is also the powerless prayers of airline passengers fastening their seatbelts for the final descent. I don't know if I exactly agree with all of Mr. Ferlinghetti's definitions for poetry, but they are very interesting food for thought. Poetry is the real subject of great prose. It speaks the unspeakable. It utters the inutterable. Sigh of the heart. That also very much connects with a lot of reasons why I write poetry. Each poem a momentary madness, and the unreal is realist. A poem shouldn't still be an insurgent knock on the door of the unknown. A poem is its own Coney Island of the mind. its own circus of the soul, its own far rockaway of the heart. A lot of New York City references in that poem. Let a new lyricism save the world from itself. Wow. I've read this many times, and I still am surprised by the potent nuggets of truth. That is the final poem in our collection of What is Poetry from Mr. Lawrence Ferlinghetti. I'll read you the little part on the back of the book that I think is particularly interesting. Having an aversion to the idea of discussing the craft of poetry or the process of creating a poem, Lawrence Ferlinghetti usually mumbles something about it's a secret trade when pressed on the subject. What is Poetry? This collection is the closest he has come to formulating a manifesto. It is an ongoing project which he is constantly revising and expanding. The present volume is the latest stage along the road. I just love that he is so unsatisfied with his own answers of what is poetry, that he is constantly revising it. I know the first edition of this book of poetry was recorded in the late 1950s. It then was finally published in 1998 and again in 1999. And this edition is much changed and enlarged, it says in the... I highly recommend the poetry of Mr. Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And I hope that the reason why I wanted to share this instead of more of my poetry today is that I think a lot of us wonder what poetry actually is, even when we're writing it and enjoying it. And I think it is a lot of things. I don't think poetry is entirely summed up by what Mr. Lawrence Ferlinghetti wrote about it. I just think he wrote some beautiful ways of imagining what poetry should be. We're all striving for the ideal poem, the poem that says it better than it has been said before. And I think in a way we all are left a little unsatisfied with our final products. And that's okay, you guys. We can keep at it, and we can find those moments where we actually say what is at the core of what we want to say. And sometimes language is very, very elusive, meaning it's hard to capture. But I think that sharing this today should help all of you in your future efforts to write some poems. So here's my little homework assignment for you all. I would love it if you all tried to write some poems, very short poems like these, about what you think poetry is. Just keep trying to answer that question. What is poetry? And the emphasis really is on the is in that question. So anyway, I hope you all are doing well. Hello to all of you who are tuning in live. And I hope that this finds many more of you who can view it at your leisure on our YouTube page. All right, you guys, I'll see you soon.